Okay, so here we have a list of several lists, right? That pretty much do the same thing. The only difference between them is that they iterate over different things, right? This one iterates over the courses. This one iterates over modules. This iterates over lessons. Also, notice that it's one big component, right? That really should be the composition of perhaps 3 individual components, right? One that only knows about courses, one that only knows about modules, and one that knows only about lessons. Yes? Right? So ideally, this would live independently of each other, right? And perhaps take as argument some input. Okay? So for instance, a better implementation of this would be perhaps something that is called lesson list, right? Or maybe lesson tabs, okay, whatever you want to call them. And then it would know that it needs to render as tabs or as pills or whatever, right? But it would take as argument a parent list of lessons, right? So let's do that. So instead of implementing it this way, what we might want to do here is generate a new component and say, ng generate a new component called lesson list. Right, lesson list. And lesson list, ideally, would have is basically this content, this exact content right here. Okay, probably just this right here. So let's grab that, let's copy that, and let's move it over to a reusable component. And the component might be, where is it? Lesson list. There it is. So in the HTML, basically we would have this content right here. Right? The problem here is that we don't have a selected module. We don't have lessons in there. Somehow we need to push that content into this component. Yes? Right? So ideally what we're going to do is this. We're going to say, ideally you would have passed us in somehow a list of lessons. And then we could iterate over that list of lessons, irrespective of how it got here. Whether it's you selected a module or whatever, doesn't matter. That's not my point. Right? You should send me whatever you need. Okay. So to do that, we need to have this component now be in communication with somebody from outside so that they can pass in lessons. Yes. Right. So what we're going to do is that in the component, we're going to declare the lessons. Right. We're going to initialize them as empty for now. We're going to initialize them as empty. Yes. Right. So we're gonna let's go back to our top level component, right? Top level component. Let's replace this. Let's replace this and say that this is a lesson list. There it is, our lesson list. Okay. And let's run this again. And you serve. And let's go back to courses. There it still works, but notice that the lessons is no longer rendering, right? This is always rendering some hard-coded empty array. Yes. If I put something in there and say that this is always rendering ID 123 and title is static lesson, right? And I go back. Notice that it's always rendering that array, right? Ideally, it would render whatever the selected module passes in. Right? So let's do that. What I'd like to be able to do is that from the course navigator, I'd like to be able to say something like lessons. I want to pass you the selected module dot lessons. Yes. And that's what I'd like to pass you down. And so to do that, what we need to do is that in the component here, we need to say that we need to map it to that attribute up there, right? This is not just a local state variable. It is the equivalent of a properties in React. It's not a local state variable, but it's being passed in from the outside. So to do that in Angular, there is a dedicated annotation. This says this is an input, right, that's being passed as an attribute from the outside world. This is not a local variable. So we are going to start off with an empty string, empty array, right? And on the other side, on the HTML, this is not a any attribute. So that this is not a literal string. It should be interpreted as an expression, right? And to do that, we use this annotation of square brackets, meaning interpret this as an expression, not as a literal string. Okay. So to do that, let's see if we broke something. Okay, there we go. So it works just as before. Everybody good? Okay. And you would do the same thing with modules. You would do the same thing with courses, right? You would encapsulate this in their own components and then have them communicate with these inputs. Everybody good? Right. The only other thing here, probably we can dispense with this div, since app lesson list already renders as a block element, like div is a block element. So we could probably just grab this class, cut it, and just paste it here, and just dispense with divs. Let's see if that works. Yeah, it works just the same. This one last element is already a block element, and we can apply the styling right on that element, right, without having a div within inside of a div. Make sense? All right, excellent. So I'll leave you to finish this up. Let's move on.